If you're watching this between December 17th and December 20th, there's something important you need to hear before you judge yourself too harshly. This tiredness you're feeling right now, it isn't laziness, it isn't weakness, and it definitely isn't failure. There's a strange mental fog that settles in around this time of year. You wake up exhausted even after sleeping. Conversations feel heavier. Motivation fades without warning. Your mind feels stretched thin, like it's been holding on to too much for too long. And you might be asking yourself why. When the year is almost over, you suddenly feel mentally exhausted instead of relieved. But here's the truth most people never realize. Mid-December is not an ending, it's a psychological shedding. This is the moment when the mind begins to detach from the identity it carried all year. Every goal you chased, every version of yourself you tried to maintain, every expectation you lived under. Your nervous system has been in survival mode for months, quietly adapting, pushing forward, holding everything together. And now, as the year begins to close, the mind loosens its grip. That loosening feels like fatigue. In spiritual terms, this is often called spiritual fatigue, but not the kind that comes from being lost. It's the kind that comes from outgrowing old mental frameworks. Your thoughts don't excite you anymore because they've already taught you what they needed to teach. The same worries repeat themselves, but now they feel empty. The same ambitions surface, but something inside you no longer resonates with them the way it used to. This is the moment when old thought patterns dissolve before transformation. And dissolution is never comfortable. You may feel disconnected from who you were just weeks ago. You may feel unsure of who you're becoming. You may even feel a subtle grief for a version of yourself that carried you this far but can't go any further with you. That emotional heaviness doesn't mean you're regressing. It means your mind is releasing outdated identities. This is why so many people search for things like mental exhaustion, meaning, or end-of-year awakening without realizing they're already inside it. The tiredness isn't random. It's a signal, a pause between identities. A quiet internal checkpoint where the mind says, I can't carry the old version into the next phase. And if you've been feeling mentally distant from people, plans, or even yourself, understand this. Detachment is part of recalibration. When the mind prepares for an identity shift, it pulls energy inward. It stops feeding external noise. It slows your desire to perform, impress, or prove anything. That slowing feels uncomfortable in a world that equates rest with failure. But letting go does not mean you failed. It means something within you has matured enough to recognize what no longer fits. Between December 17th and December 20th, something subtle but powerful happens psychologically. The mind begins to review the year not through logic, but through emotion. You may suddenly remember moments you thought you were over. Regrets resurface. Conversations replay. Choices echo. Not because you're meant to punish yourself, but because the psyche is integrating experience. This is integration fatigue. You didn't just live this year physically, you lived it emotionally, mentally, spiritually. And integration requires stillness. The mind grows tired because it is reorganizing itself. Think of it like clearing a crowded room. Everything has to be touched, acknowledged, and either kept or released. That process drains energy, but it creates space. That's why forcing motivation during this phase backfires. Your mind isn't designed to sprint right now. It's designed to exhale. Many people mistake this phase for burnout, but burnout feels chaotic. This feels quiet, heavy but calm, empty but aware. There's a difference between collapse and surrender. What you're experiencing is surrender. Surrender doesn't mean giving up on life. It means giving up on illusions. The illusion that you must always be moving. The illusion that productivity equals worth. The illusion that your identity must remain consistent to be valid. This is why your mind feels tired but alert at the same time. Why you can stare into space and feel strangely peaceful. Why social interactions feel draining even when nothing is wrong. You're not antisocial, you're introspective. Spiritually, this is often the doorway to an end-of-year awakening. Not the dramatic kind people expect, but the grounded kind that changes how you relate to yourself. Old narratives lose their emotional charge. You stop arguing with your past. You stop chasing closure. You stop needing answers immediately. That's growth. And growth is quiet before it's visible. If you're feeling like your old coping mechanisms don't work anymore, that's intentional. If distractions don't distract you the same way, that's intentional. If you've made it this far, don't forget to subscribe for daily cosmic insights, astrology updates, and spiritual guidance, because the universe always has a message for you. If your mind refuses to engage in old dramas, even internal ones, that's intentional. You are being guided toward a cleaner mental baseline. Letting go does not erase your effort. It honors it. The mind doesn't dissolve patterns randomly. It dissolves them when their purpose is complete. So if you've been worried that your exhaustion means you're falling behind, hear this clearly. You are not behind. You are between versions, and between versions always feels uncomfortable because there is no script. As December moves toward its final stretch, the question isn't what you'll accomplish next. The real question is who you're no longer willing to be. This tiredness is teaching you boundaries you never learned while hustling. It's showing you the cost of carrying identities that weren't truly yours. And once you see that cost, you can't unsee it. That's why the mind insists on rest now. Not sleep alone, but mental rest. The rest that comes from not forcing meaning, from allowing silence, from letting the year close without squeezing lessons out of every moment. If you're feeling emotionally neutral instead of excited or sad, that's not emptiness, that's stabilization. The nervous system resetting, the mind recalibrating its priorities. This is what spiritual fatigue looks like right before clarity returns. Soon, without effort, new desires will surface. New thoughts will arrive without force. New direction will feel natural instead of pressured. But only if you allow this pause to exist. This phase doesn't ask you to fix yourself. It asks you to trust that your mind knows when it's time to release. Growth doesn't always announce itself with fireworks. Sometimes it whispers through exhaustion and asks for permission to be felt. So if this video found you during these days, consider it confirmation. You're not losing momentum, you're shedding weight, you're not disconnected, you're realigning, and you're not failing by letting go. You're growing in a way that doesn't need validation yet. If this resonated, sit with it. Don't rush to explain it. Sometimes the most powerful shifts happen quietly, when the mind finally feels safe enough to rest. And if you're feeling this right now, you're not alone. This is the space where transformation begins. There's another layer to this tiredness that rarely gets talked about. It's the exhaustion that comes from pretending you're still the same person you were at the beginning of the year. Your mind knows something your habits haven't caught up to yet. You've changed. Your tolerance for nonsense is lower. Your patience for meaningless stress is thinner. And your soul no longer wants to negotiate with things that drain it. That internal mismatch creates fatigue. When the mind outgrows an identity, but the world still treats you like the old version, it feels disorienting. You may feel misunderstood without knowing why. You may feel irritated by things you once ignored. Not because you're becoming negative, but because your awareness has sharpened. Growth always sharpens awareness before it softens perspective. This is why rest feels necessary but never quite enough. Because what you actually need isn't sleep, it's alignment. Your mind is asking you to stop feeding roles that no longer reflect who you are becoming, and until that adjustment happens, energy will continue to leak. So if you've been wondering why you feel tired even on easy days, this is why. Your mind is no longer motivated by surface-level rewards. It wants meaning, coherence, and truth. Anything less feels exhausting. During this phase, many people experience a strange sense of emotional neutrality. You're not deeply sad, you're not particularly happy. You're just observing, watching life instead of reacting to it. This often scares people because they mistake emotional calm for emptiness. But this neutrality is actually clarity forming. When old emotional loops dissolve, there's a temporary quiet where the mind recalibrates. Think of it like silence after a storm. The chaos has passed, but the air hasn't fully settled yet. That's where you are. And here's the important part. This phase only feels uncomfortable if you resist it. If you keep trying to feel like yourself again, you miss the point. The self you're trying to return to has already completed its role. You're not meant to go back. You're meant to pass through. Spiritual fatigue often shows up right before a more authentic identity takes shape. One that doesn't rely on constant validation. One that doesn't panic at uncertainty. One that knows how to pause without guilt. That's why this phase strips away urgency. The mind is learning patience on a deeper level, not patience with situations, but patience with itself. You may notice that your inner dialogue has changed recently. The voice in your head sounds quieter, slower, less dramatic. Problems don't provoke the same emotional spikes. Even fears feel distant, like echoes instead of threats. This doesn't mean you stopped caring. It means you stopped over-identifying. This is a major sign of growth that often goes unnoticed. When the mind loosens its grip on outcomes, it conserves energy. Drama is exhausting. Attachment is exhausting. Overthinking is exhausting. And right now, your system is learning to let go of all three. That's why forcing excitement feels wrong. That's why chasing motivation feels artificial. Your mind is no longer interested in fake urgency. It wants grounded movement, not frantic effort. And once you accept this, something shifts. The tiredness becomes softer. The pressure eases. You stop fighting the phase and start listening to it. This is where wisdom begins to replace ambition. Another reason this time feels heavy is because you're subconsciously closing emotional chapters. Some relationships won't come with closure. Some goals won't end the way you imagined. Some versions of yourself will quietly fade without ceremony. And that's okay. Not everything needs an explanation to be released. The mind knows when something has run its course. And during mid-December, it becomes ruthless about truth. You can no longer lie to yourself about what drains you. You can no longer romanticize struggle. You can no longer ignore inner resistance. That honesty feels heavy, but it's also freeing. This is where identity shifts happen without announcement. One day you wake up and realize you no longer want what you used to want. You no longer argue with reality. You no longer chase things that cost too much peace. That's not giving up. That's refining. As this phase deepens, solitude may start to feel comforting instead of lonely. Silence becomes nourishing. You crave fewer conversations, fewer opinions, fewer explanations. Not because you're withdrawing from life, but because you're reconnecting with yourself. The mind restores itself in quiet moments. This is why scrolling feels empty now, why noise feels irritating, why surface-level content no longer satisfies you. Your nervous system is recalibrating its stimulation threshold. It wants depth, not distraction. And once this reset completes, your focus will return sharper than before. But only if you allow the stillness to finish its work. Growth doesn't rush. It waits until you're ready. Soon, without warning, clarity will arrive. Not as a loud revelation, but as a calm knowing. You'll feel less confused, less reactive, less desperate for answers. Decisions will feel simpler because your mind is no longer split between who you were and who you're becoming. This is the reward for letting go. The exhaustion fades when alignment replaces resistance. Energy returns when authenticity replaces obligation. And confidence rebuilds when you stop forcing outcomes. This is why letting go is not failure, it's efficiency. The mind is designed to release what no longer serves growth. Holding on is what drains it. So, if these days feel slow, heavy, quiet, or emotionally strange, trust the process. You are not losing momentum. You are consolidating wisdom. You are not behind. You are preparing. December 17th to 20th is not asking you to push. It's asking you to listen. Let the tiredness exist. Let the silence speak. Let the old patterns dissolve without trying to rescue them. What's coming next doesn't need force. It needs space. And if this video found you at the right moment, take that as confirmation. Your mind knows exactly what it's doing. Rest isn't the opposite of growth. Sometimes it's the doorway.